Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Non-Prophets. I'm doing double duty today as host and producer, so let me check on my sound levels real quick. The internet audio program is brought to you by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You are listening to us live August 10th, 2002, on atheistnetwork.com. Broadcasting from the second floor of our house, which Jeff affectionately refers to as the Glasser Studios in Austin, Texas. I'm Russell Glasser, and I'll be hosting the show today. Jeff D. and Vic Farrow are both MIA today, but we still have the lovely and talented Mary McManamee.
Hi!
As well as the lady whose fault it is that we didn't broadcast last week.
Sorry!
That would be my sister Keryn, who's just moved to Austin, and we're hoping that she has a long and successful stay here. The Atheist Community of Austin has weekly meetings, Sunday mornings at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop, 307 West 5th Street at 10:30 a.m., except for the first Sunday of each month, when we have our lecture series at 11 a.m. in the Longhorn Room of First Cafeteria at North Cross Mall. Our next lecture will be on September 1st, if I got it right on my calendar. ACA board meetings take place at 10 o'clock, right before our regular meeting on the second Sunday of every month. Is that tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. These meetings are open to all ACA members, but you can only vote if you're on the board of directors. The next board meeting is tomorrow. Those of you who shop at Randall's can give them our nonprofit organization number, 5158, and have 1% of your purchase donated to the Atheist Community of Austin. The Godless Gamers meet every Monday night at 7 o'clock p.m. right here at our house. ACA Happy Hour takes place at Antonio's near Highway 35 and 183 every Thursday night at 7 p.m. If you get there and don't see anyone else, hang around because lots of people trickle in as the night goes on. For more information, you can call our voicemail at 512-371-2911 or visit our website at www.atheist-community.org.
And Vic's here, but he's in the chat room.
Yes.
Hi, Vic.
Hi, Vic. If you're listening live, and that was a good segue there, because if you're listening live and you don't know about the chat room, you can come here and interact with us personally. And since I usually man the chat room, it's unlikely that we'll have a lot of dialogue going on today.
Why is he asking if I
you can always try your luck. The opening music was from the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It was the Soggy Bottom Boys singing A Man of Constant Sorrow. And I don't know why I picked that, except it just seemed like a good idea at the time. Great soundtrack. We're a little flustered today because the Atheist Network is moving over to a different method of transmitting the broadcast. So I spent half the morning on the phone with the infidel guy, Reggie, trying to straighten out problems with my computer. And Reggie, thanks again. We promise we'll get it working next week. And that's all. So maybe now I could get down to some technical stuff. And Mary, you can read some news.
Okay, I'm ready. And thanks, Reggie, because without you guys, we would not have the show at all. Yeah, I wanted to segue to some world news first, and Keryn, I don't know how much discussion you want to get into, but feel free to chime in at any time.
I have a discussion topic if we ever run out of things to say.
Terrific.
Save it.
Okay.
We'll get to it.
Good. Okay. Let me start with some news over across the ocean. Let's see here. Let's start in Mexico City, shall we? There's a new film out. The release date is really not yet known as far as the international date of release, but a new film about love and corruption among Catholic priests has scandalized some Mexican churchgoers, even though the plot is adapted from a novel written in 1875. Basically, the film is a modern-day adaptation of a Portuguese novelist, José Eca de and excuse me while I slow down on this pronunciation, Kyrios, satire about a priest struggling with his vows of celibacy. De Kyrios died in 1900, and the name of the film is The Crime of Father Amaro, which translates into Spanish as El Crimen del Padre Amaro. Basically, some church groups have threatened to sue the government for funding this film.
Oh.
And basically, the controversy is that it is being fueled in particular by leaders of a Catholic anti-abortion group, which have threatened to file a criminal complaint against the government for supplying a small part of the film's funding. The church apparently has no plans to boycott the film, but again, criticism of the film has been so heated that the Mexican Film Institute and the government's Arts Council took out full-page ads in Mexican newspapers to justify the funding.
And you know what? That's the best advertising that they could possibly give it.
Yeah, that's a good point. The director is, let's see, his last name is Carrera. I'm looking for his first name. Sorry about
Let me see if there's an IMDb reference.
mistaken. Sorry about my slowness on this. Let's see.
What's the name of the movie?
The name is The Crime of Father Amaro. Amaro. Or El Crimen del Padre Amaro. Let's see. The film opens with the arrival of a newly ordained priest in a small parish where he falls in love with a 16-year-old girl and discovers that one of his fellow priests is mixed up with a local woman and drug traffickers, while another is involved with leftist guerrillas. Some of the film's more controversial scenes reportedly show a woman spitting out a communion wafer and giving it to a cat, and the young priest having sex with a girl. So, yeah. So
Having sex with
a
an
girl.
adult girl?
No, I think with the 16-year-old.
I knew.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good movie.
Yeah. So be watching for that. Again, no international date has been set yet for this film's release, but just to give you a heads up.
Cool.
Yeah, and let's see, turning back to, well, actually, let me kind of segue here.
We've got some international stuff if you need it.
Okay, I think I'll be all right. Speaking of the Catholic Church, the Vatican has excommunicated 7 women who claim to be priests and refuse to repent. And the Pope is saying that this group of women has, quote-unquote, wounded the Church.
What did he want them to do? Say they're not priests?
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Repent of being priests?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the women from Austria, Germany, and the United States participated in an ordination ceremony carried out by Romulo Braschi, an Argentine who calls himself an archbishop, but whom the Vatican rejects. The Church's guardian of orthodoxy, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, set a July 22nd deadline for the women to reverse their claims. However, the women did not. And Pope John Paul has made clear that he sees no room for debate about the possibility of opening up the priesthood to women. The Church says Jesus chose men to be his apostles, and that the practice of ordaining only men must stand. Which is totally bogus.
You know, I have mixed emotions when it comes to the issues of women priests, because on the one hand, I don't really feel that much sympathy for anyone who wants to be a priest. But on the other hand, they should be as non-sexist about it as possible.
Right. The thing that gets me is, you know, and again, I'm no biblical scholar, but I would be curious to know if anybody in the chat room or if anybody here knows much about Catholicism, why this is even an issue. I'm still not really clear on that.
For one thing, if the Pope says it, and he says it while he's speaking in his official capacity, then that's pretty much as authoritative as the Bible, isn't it? I mean, to Catholics.
Yeah, but I guess that's my question, is why would the Pope care one way or the other? I mean, it never says, I mean, again...
Well, if you want, I can pull up some very nice choice Bible verses that say that women are not allowed to speak in church, let alone teach. I mean, you know, in fact, I think there's another verse that specifically says that it is shameful for a woman to talk in church, and another one that says that men shouldn't have to learn anything from women.
Yeah.
And while I admire the sentiment, I better be careful. I'm the only guy in a room full of women. Except for one who's 2 months old. And
Yeah,
he can't really defend me.
Don't rely on Ben for a rebuttal at this point.
Yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Give him time.
Oh, he's asleep. Somehow you are.
Well, it says, let's see, last month the women said in a statement that they have not committed any act warranting excommunication, and that they were seeking instruction from the Vatican on several points, as well as 3 months to study the situation. But they, among other questions, they were seeking clarification from the Vatican on just what constitutes schismatic conduct and on biblical passages regarding the equality of women. So that's where the issue stands now. But basically, they've been excommunicated. They've been told, hey, you're not priests, you never were, so give it up.
Okay.
Basically the upshot.
You want some nice Bible quotes on women? I mean, we got some great ones coming from St. Paul, who was one heck of a misogynist.
Which website is that?
This is just something I found while searching, so I can't tell you.
But all religions have sexist things to say about women. I can't think of any religion that doesn't.
Except ones that are, run by women, which are pretty rare nowadays.
Yeah.
Let's see, women... Oh, darn, these aren't direct quotes. But women aren't allowed to talk in church. Speaking in church is shameful. Women are to remain silent, and if they have any questions, they are to ask their husbands at home after church.
Blah.
That's 1 Corinthians 14:34 through 35. They should treat their husbands as they treat God, from Ephesians 5:22 to 24. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. And finally, in 1 Timothy chapter 2, we get something that says that women are to learn in silence without subjection. They cannot teach nor usurp authority over the man. So, some pretty exciting stuff there.
Yeah.
By the way, have we plugged the Brick Testament on this show before?
No.
That's a great site that somebody posted.
No, we haven't.
I think it's bricktestament.com. It's got many Bible verses rendered as scenes in Legos.
Oh, wow.
It's hysterical.
That's great.
No, it's not. It's something like the Reverend. It's not.
Yeah, right. Could somebody Google that real quick? Look for the Brick Testament and tell me what it is in the chat room.
That is great.
Because I love that site, and especially those verses on women have some absolutely hilarious scenes set up with them. But be warned, there's about as close to pornographic material as you can get with Legos. I mean, given that they don't have any private parts.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I want to retract what I said a minute ago. I said that without thinking. I mean, I'm sure there are some religions that, are not so misogynistic, but they are few and far between, unfortunately. And it really irks me that in this day and age, we have a religion, any religion, that says that women are inferior.
Yeah.
Or even that men are inferior.
We have to put up with this stuff until people finally come to the obvious realization that all religions suck.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you don't take it quite that far, I mean, if you just say that all religions, all religions suck who say that you have to believe that there are certain people who are just inferior in society.
Are there any religions that don't do that? I mean, I think part of the point of having a religion is to set up this whole us versus them, we're so much better kind of mentality. I mean, that's also part of the hallmark of a cult, but I can't think of any religion that doesn't do that.
Maybe some of the goddess religions don't do that.
Of course, Keryn and I were raised Jewish, so we have a little bit of a bias toward that religion. But what do you think?
Oh, I think there are some religions that sanctify women. I mean, Judaism, if you break down a lot of the rules, it has to do with the fact that women are Well, either pure or unclean. It depends on which rule you're looking at.
Virgin or whore.
For example, men are not allowed to touch women in
Thanks,
Judaism.
Charles. Hang on. www.thereverend.com/brick_testament.
Great. Oh, thanks, Charles.
Right there in the chat room.
Perfect.
Okay.
Oh, but I'm sorry, you were saying?
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, in Judaism, men are not allowed to touch women, and this is partially out of respect for women, but it's also partially out of the fact that women are considered unclean when they are on the rag.
Right, it's the same reason they don't eat pork. Carries diseases.
But is this just in Orthodox Judaism, or is this...
It's Orthodox Judaism.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you get to the liberal end of the spectrum with any religion, you get away from the really nasty stuff. But, I mean, you know, if you take the pure essence of religion, I mean, to be a liberal religious person, you have to sort of ignore large portions of your holy book that say ugly things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I remember having a discussion online just this week about how the Book of Mormon has a lot of racist stuff in it. And of course, some of our Mormon friends are very uncomfortable with this and like to point to later statements that the church has made saying, well, you know, black people aren't really scum. But, you know, to do that, they have to ignore part of their holy book. And I'd sure rather they do that.
What's that called? Nick says
Nick
what?
says, now we have refrigerators, so we can eat pork.
That's right. Excuse me. Yeah,
And we can touch women. Woohoo!
Woo! Even when they're on the rag. Woohoo!
Okay. Should I do another overseas story?
Sure.
Speaking, and this fits in so nicely with how religions treat women, villagers beat 5 women to death for being witches. You thought that was ancient history, but it still goes on in other countries. We're talking Kolkata, West Bengal. 5 tribal women suspected of being witches were beaten to death by a village mob in West Bengal, a senior police official said on Thursday. Police Superintendent Sidnath Gupta said the incident took place on Monday at Kilkat Tea Gardens inside Dwar's Forest in the foothills of Himalayas, about 600 kilometers from Calcutta. People raided the village on Wednesday after 2 bodies were found floating in the river Murti that flows beside the village, he said. He said 10 people in the village who were questioned about the deaths gave details of the gory incident. The 5 women's ages were between 45 to 55 years. The village people suspected them... Not those village people. Suspected them of practicing a witchcraft after a car driver at the tea garden, Bandhay Oran, died of an unknown disease, Gupta said.
No.
The village jury called a meeting on Tuesday and ordered the 5 women to be killed as they pronounced them guilty of practicing witchcraft, he added. Locals said the women were beaten to death in front of a cheering crowd in the village.
I just wonder what the circumstances are in that part of the world where, is it just poverty that's going on? I mean, just such rampant poverty that there's no way that there's a certain kind of isolationism that's going on in this particular segment of society or is it actually a religion that's being
Well, I mean, it can't be anything but religion
that
or superstition that leads people to call them witches.
Yeah.
But,
I'd like to know more culturally what's going on in that situation.
We kind of have a tendency to want to think that when something like this happens, it's some religious backwoods, country bumpkin, loony population that's cut off from the rest of the world. And I remember hearing something about Afghanistan before the Taliban took over, which indicated that in that place, for instance, it was a genuinely modern city. I mean, women had jobs and worked as teachers and
Doctors,
professionals,
lawyers,
and got educated. And, basically lived their lives as normal modern women, and then this gang of thugs comes in and takes over by force and says, okay, from now on you have to wear these headdresses and not go outside or speak to anybody.
Yeah.
And it's really jarring. I mean, you imagine it happening in Austin or something.
I know. It's hard to imagine. It's almost unfathomable.
But hopefully Bush won't last a second term, so...
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh, God.
I mean, not to sound paranoid or anything, but I do worry about that a lot, where, if the United States were to turn into,
a theocracy.
A theocracy, which is what I think Bush would love, among other politicians and leaders
Ashcroft.
of this country. Ashcroft, definitely. I really, we think that, that could never happen here, but I'm not so sure. I mean, maybe it wouldn't happen by guns and violence like the Taliban, but I think it could be much more subtle, where, there's, depending on what happens with cases like the Pledge of Allegiance and, the voucher issue, we may see a complete infiltration, if you will, of, Christian values that say if you're not Christian, then, you are to be stoned or shunned or otherwise persecuted.
It probably wouldn't be so much by violence, but by ostracizing people.
Right.
Like other housewives saying to working women, oh my God, you go out in public and you have a job that makes you a horrible woman. Mm-hmm. You should stay home and take care of your children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean... forgot what I was going to say, but I mean, that sort of thing does worry me a lot, especially in light of how they've been talking about how in wartime, they should be able to rescind certain rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution, so in favor of national security, with people of Arab American descent, they can just, forget the rights that they're supposed to have. They can just round them up and throw them in jail on suspicion and keep them there for a while. So what if they decide that atheists are a national threat?
Right. Exactly. And I mean...
they could come storming into my home sometime when we're broadcasting.
And say, well, if you're going to be speaking against, what we believe, then you are considered an infidel and you're a threat.
Yeah.
You're a threat to national security.
Of course, I don't seriously believe that's all that close. I just like to throw that out there.
But the other thing that, I'll just toss this out too, not that I really think it's too much of a threat at this point, but, there was recently that decision by Ashcroft to allow the FBI to conduct searches, for example, internet searches on somebody, even if they're not conducting an active investigation. And it used to be where if you were going to gather information about somebody, you had to demonstrate that you were doing it for some, legitimate investigative purpose.
Right.
But now they no longer have that, I guess, stipulation.
Yeah. Well, and you heard they want to subject the Congress members to lie detector tests now.
Really? No, I didn't hear that.
Oh, it's been in the news for the past couple of weeks. I can't remember who. I guess it was Ashcroft's.
Why am I not surprised?
Wants to institute it, but I've been hearing it on the Limbaugh show all week, and he's like, "Oh, those pansy liberal senators just don't want to be investigated. What have they got to hide?" And it's ridiculous. Lie detectors don't even work right.
No,
they measure
don't.
stress levels.
Yeah, they don't actually tell whether somebody's lying or not.
Right.
It's preposterous.
Not that I have any great love for Congress members.
But what's the rationale behind this? What are they worried about? Is it?
I think who is that one guy who was one guy who got investigated? Oh shoot! This is why we need more people.
Impeached.
Yeah, that guy.
I know who you're talking about.
What's his name?
I think they just kind of impeached him generally for being a butthead.
Yeah, I've heard clips of him being a butthead. But I think they had more specific charges about him breaching national security or something. But, Hey, the non-prophets, always out to inform you with very confused versions of the facts. And this is the time when I would normally be desperately doing internet research, but here I am talking on the microphone.
Well,
Jeff, come back!
Story.
Okay,
Jeff.
let's move on.
Yeah, we need Jeff to get all hot and bothered about this stuff. Like, damn it! Those morons!
Bleepity bleep those people!
But now we don't have to bleepity bleep because we're not on TV.
Right,
We can
that's
say
true.
whatever we want.
But you got 2 kids at home.
Well, that's true. Gotta be careful.
Okay, moving right along.
Okay. I wanted to... Speaking of international news, this is out of Jakarta, in Indonesia. This is actually some good news, I think.
Really?
Mm-hmm. In a major expansion of democracy, Indonesia's top legislature amended the constitution Saturday to require direct presidential elections and end reserved parliament seats for the military. And this was in response to... I was talking with Tim about this earlier, and he mentioned the General Suharto, who came to power in a military coup in 1966, apparently abused the system in Jakarta, Indonesia, by rigging 6 consecutive presidential ballots starting in 1971. He was ousted 4 years ago after widespread street protests. And the other thing that the 700-member People's Consultative Assembly has decided is to turn back calls to impose Islamic-based law in the world's most populous Muslim nation. The Assembly's decision to abolish its own role as an electoral college that picks the head of state is considered the most important government change since the 1960s, when this incident with General Suharto started. All the measures endorsed Saturday were adopted by consensus rather than open ballot after party leaders agreed no faction should be publicly seen to be defeated. And let's see. Oh, President Megawati Sukarno Putri, the daughter of Indonesia's founding father, Sukarno, is the country's most popular politician and is expected to easily win re-election.
And I missed that. Does he sound like he's a good guy?
Sounds like it. It sounds like he's in favor of this proposal to set up a 2-stage election for president with a runoff required if no candidate wins an outright majority in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like, they've been trying to implement some form of democratic government, since there was all of this political unrest.
I mean, we've got this problem where, we try to institute democracy in these little countries, and then they end up voting for the exact same wacko, lunatic terrorist that they've had in power all along.
For the whole time, yeah.
They don't know any different.
Yeah. So this will be an interesting situation to keep track of. Indonesia, just some stats here. Indonesia has 210 million people. And again, it is the world's most populous Muslim nation. So, cool.
Yeah.
Well, democracy marches on, sort of.
Yep. Except here. Because some students in North Carolina don't want to even hear about the Koran. You want me to do that story?
Oh, yeah, sure. And then
Okay.
I've got 2 more stories about school people whining about stuff.
Okay. Get this, folks. An attempt by the University of North Carolina to respond to the attacks of September 11th by asking incoming students to read a book about the Koran has so offended some Christian conservatives that they are suing. The university thought...
God forbid they should read anything but the Bible.
I know. What's the big deal, people? The university thought approaching the Koran, the early revelations by Haverford College religion professor Michael Sells would provide an appropriate introduction to the literature and culture of a profound moral and spiritual tradition that many of us now wish to learn more about. But at least 3 incoming freshmen, a Catholic, an evangelical Protestant, and a Jew, didn't think so. And with help from the conservative Family Policy Network, have taken the university to court. Again, this is the University of North Carolina. They complain Being forced to read excerpts from the Muslim holy book is an unconstitutional violation of the separation of church and state.
Wait a minute. Are they forced to take this class? Is this the only class that fulfills a certain requirement?
Well, the article really doesn't make that clear, I don't think, but let me quickly skim it and see if
What was the name of the class?
mentions that. The name of the book that they're being asked to read is Approaching the Quran, The Early Revelations by Michael Sells. He's a Haverford College religion professor. So apparently
it's not even necessarily, promoting the Quran, it's just talking about it.
Right. But let me see if it says in here anywhere whether it's being, if they're making students read this or if it's just something that's an elective requirement. Or, well, it wouldn't be a requirement in that case, but just
maybe
an
for
elective.
religious studies majors, they were upset that they had to study other religions besides their own.
Yeah, we thought religious studies meant Christian studies. And we thought studies meant propaganda.
Yeah. Well, here's... Fox News talk show host Bill O'Reilly blasted the school for making students study our enemy's religion and compared it to teaching Hitler's Mein Kampf in 1941.
Well, dumbass, how are you supposed to deal with them if you don't understand their religion? You're supposed to study things your enemies do.
Right. It's called... hasn't he ever heard of Sun Tzu, The Art of War?
Exactly. I was reading somebody sent me a great article on Warcraft this week.
Yeah.
And somehow all my conversations have to turn back to that these days because Warcraft is the most awesome game. But anyway, what they were talking about is that when you try to win a video game like Warcraft or Street Fighter, what you have to do is not get narrow-mindedly focused on what you're doing. You have to watch what the opponent does, because whatever they do is allowed. If they do that, then you can't sit there and whine, it's not fair. They're not allowed. Like the British in the American Revolution, who, sort of suicided themselves against people shooting at them. Oh, gentlemen aren't supposed to shoot. You're supposed to use bayonets. Well, guess what? If they can do it, they will.
Yeah.
The way you win a war is you observe what the enemy does and how they think, and then you either do that yourself or figure out what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
You can't win something by burying your head in the sand.
Right. It makes no sense to me.
Which is why I listen to Christian radio all the time.
Yeah.
I've finally figured it out. A little bit of self-analysis there. I want to know what they're up to.
Yeah.
I don't want to hide from it, which I think should be exactly the position that we're taking on Muslim wackos,
now,
which is not to say all Muslims, just Muslim wackos.
Would you feel the same way if this particular book is being forced on students?
I would be uncomfortable about that.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see. It's just really not that clear as to whether they are forcing people. Let's see. Oh, here we go. After the suit was filed, the university quickly changed its 4-year-old introductory reading requirement, which demands students read the book, write a one-page report, and take part in a 2-hour discussion, to allow students who find the reading, quote, offensive to their own faith, unquote, to write a one-page report about why they chose not to read the book. So it sounds like no matter, whether they want to or not, then they can't. They can't say, I don't want to read it and not do anything.
I think if you're saying you're not going to read it, you're just saying you don't want to learn anything.
Yeah. I can kind of understand the students' apprehension about being forced to read something, but how is that really any different than their regular studies? You can't say, well, I don't want to read this book while I'm in college, for my assignment, but I will read, I don't know. It doesn't seem like you ever have that kind of choice anyway, so what's the difference?
I haven't yet seen a college that didn't offer some options. They didn't have to take that class. If they had to fulfill some religious studies requirement, I doubt there's only one class that you can possibly take.
Yeah.
If they didn't want to read that book, they should have taken something else.
Yeah.
So, wait, what did we determine? I was downstairs getting the door.
Yeah. Hi, by the way, Martin Wagner is here.
Hi, everybody.
Our host of the TV show,
Hi.
The Atheist Experience.
Coming to save us. Actually, we're doing pretty well on our own.
Well, let me fill you in on where we're at. We're talking about Oh, you did? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've heard...
apparently been on for 35 minutes.
Well,
Yeah.
the point that Keryn and I were just discussing is if you're in college and, basically you can have a selection of books, let's say, to choose from that you want to read.
Right.
But how would you feel if the University of North Carolina told you, a student, an incoming freshman, you must read this book entitled
the Quran, yeah. I've been following
the Quran, the early revelations.
Yeah, I've been following this flap, and I don't think they should be required to read it as admission to the college. Doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it's not for admission. It's just once they get in, then they have to read it.
Okay. Okay. Well,
but the article doesn't specify if this is for a religious studies program.
It's not. As I understand from everything that I've been hearing, it's about just if you want to get into this school at all, you've got to read this. That's
you have to read the Quran book?
No, you have to. Yeah, you have to read the Quran book if you want to be admitted to this college. Period. That's
what kind
that's
of
what I
school
understand.
is this?
It's I don't know. Well, but what's amusing to me, is that have we gotten into the American Family Association's lawsuit yet?
That's what we were just talking about. We were touching on
the American Family Association, the fundamentalist Christian organization, who would love nothing more than to have mandatory Christian prayer in all the schools. Suddenly, when another competing religion rears its ugly head, then they're all, this is a violation of separation of church and state. We can't have this. We can't have this Islam. We can't have this book promoting Islam. That's bad. That's a violation of the separation clause. The same people who weeks ago were being all outraged about taking under God out of the pledge because that was evil and horrible.
Well, don't be an idiot, Martin. This is a Christian nation, after all.
Oh, right, yeah.
Didn't you know that?
So it just it amuses me that they're just this openly that have this open of a double standard, and the irony just doesn't even click in the tiniest little bit.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Well, it sounds like, according to this article, again, I'll repeat this, but after the suit was filed, the university quickly changed its 4-year-old introductory reading requirement, which demands students read the book, write a 1-page report, and take part in a 2-hour discussion, to allow students who find the reading offensive to write a 1-page report about why they chose not to read the book. So,
Wouldn't take me a page.
Yeah. So,
you could wax eloquent about the separation clause, and
that
would
do that.
be good.
But I think Bill O'Reilly's comments are just asinine, to say that this is compared to teaching Hitler's Mein Kampf in 1941.
Frankly, I think we should teach Mein Kampf.
I was going to say that
too. The exact same reason.
Well, but again, if you're going to take a history class about that period of history, about World War II, it makes perfectly good sense to have Mein Kampf as required reading, just as if you're going to have a comparative religions class.
Yes,
then have this Quran book.
I, for one, am delighted that the full text of Mein Kampf can be found online, even though it's on a website run by a neo-Nazi group. It's great to be able to pull out specific quotes of Hitler and show, you see, this is what he thought. Here's his thoughts on religion.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, reading something does not amount to agreeing with it.
No, it doesn't. And that's the whole point.
That's kind of endemic. That's kind of symptomatic of the problem with religion, is that it gets you in this whole mindset of, you don't agree with something unless it's telling you something you're supposed to believe. I mean, you don't read something unless it's telling you something you're supposed to believe.
Yep.
Right. You only read what reinforces, your belief system or your preconceived ideas about other belief systems.
And of course, some people just come up with these things just completely out of the blue and hope to pass it off as fact when they haven't read anything. I've had people tell me that Hitler was an atheist. So the whole thing came from Hitler being an atheist, and that's just plain wrong.
What was it he said he said he was a big devotee of Richard Wagner. And he was especially big into Parsifal.
The composer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Very much so.
What other Richard Wagner is there?
Just checking.
Well, I don't,
been an author.
No one related to me.
Well, I bet if you check this one book, you could find at least 10 of them.
Well, he especially Parsifal, which was the Parsifal was the night after after the Holy Grail, and so that's a very religious.
Well, you see, we've already got one.
And Hitler said he was going to make a religion out of Parsifal. And later on, he told Erwin Rommel, who I think was Catholic. and he told Rommel something to the effect that your God is for weak people and my God is for the strong. So he, but he definitely wasn't an atheist. He had his own kooky, wild ideas.
Yeah, he wasn't what you'd call a traditional Christian, exactly.
No, all of Nazism was steeped in different sorts of mysticism.
Yeah, at least that's what I learned from Castle Wolfenstein.
Yeah.
But we digress.
Yeah.
Can I talk about another lawsuit that's just been quite riotous? We've been off for a couple of weeks, and in those weeks there have been many. I mean, I don't know. There's just like an epidemic of school lawsuits. But here's the most wacky one coming up. Philip Vaccaro considers Jesus his best friend. So, to him, Jesus seemed perfect for a writing assignment the 7th grader got this spring in his language arts class in Brookfield, Ohio. Write a friendly letter to someone who dramatically changed his life.
Okay.
But his teacher didn't like his choice of correspondence. She told him he could not write that letter because Jesus wasn't a real person, that he didn't exist, Philip's mother, Peggy Kohler, said. How dare they throw their atheistic values upon my children? Here's the kicker, though. Okay. The attorney for the school district said the class assignment was to prepare a letter and mail it to someone else, with the hopes the students would get a response. In the attorney's words, it would be difficult to get a written reply from Jesus. Philip's mother isn't buying it, so she has filed a $1.5 million lawsuit against the school district.
Hang on. Okay, now, I think Mom's right here. Okay. I mean, the teacher has no business telling, an atheist teacher has no business in the public school telling a Christian child Jesus doesn't exist.
Okay, but
any
hang
more
on
than
there.
the school has
Wait,
the
did
right.
they actually say that the teacher was an atheist?
This is what the mother said the teacher said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas the attorney said that the class assignment was to prepare a letter and mail it to somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so no one's interviewed the teacher at all?
No, as far as I can tell, no direct interviews have happened with the teacher.
And the teacher probably can't comment on since there's a
because
lawsuit.
now there's a lawsuit pending.
Right.
Well, if what Mom says is accurate, right, she's got a point.
Yes, but I can't imagine that causing $1.5 million worth of emotional damage.
No, I know. Well, see, the point of lawsuits, again, is, the punitive...
What? There's no tooth fairy? Oh my god!
Well, Christians tie the entirety of their emotional and mental well-being into their belief system.
But, I mean, the teacher was probably not... I mean, we don't even know that the teacher was an atheist. She could have been trying to make a point, not by saying that Jesus never existed, but that he doesn't exist now.
Regardless.
He died 2,000 years ago. You can't mail him a letter.
Yeah.
Regardless, the teacher had no right to tell the child you can't write a letter to Jesus.
If that's what she said, then I agree with you.
Yeah. Whether she came right out and openly said Jesus doesn't exist, he's a mythic guy, if that's an accurate quote from the teacher, whether the teacher said that or not, the teacher still didn't have a right to say you can't write a letter to Jesus if you want to. Because it's not a separation of church and state issue, because it's the student, the child, doing it on his own. And how many first grade and kindergarten classrooms every year have the little kids write letters to Santa Claus?
If it did not fit the description of the assignment, then she also can't go and give him special permission to fudge his assignment with something that doesn't meet the requirements, just because it would offend his religion not to do that.
That's true, but remember, who's saying that who's describing the assignment that way? The school district
Phillips, that's true.
I mean, we don't know if the teacher... It seems like that's suddenly coming after the fact. Is the school board guy saying, "Oh, that wasn't really the assignment."
Well, wait a minute, everything's coming after the fact. Right. The claim that she said that Jesus wasn't a real person is coming from the mom.
I know,
and we know that,
and we should be.
The Christians who sue people for $1.5 million are not entirely stable.
Right. Well, I know. We should take this all with a grain of salt, but still,
Anyway. In the suit, the mother claims that her son's constitutional right to freely express his religion was violated because he wasn't allowed to write to Jesus. And write him on your own time.
I disagree.
Well, no, wait a minute. No, they're right. Okay. If the teacher specified as part of the assignment, this has to be a real letter to a real person. We're going to mail these tomorrow and get a response.
Well,
Okay, maybe we just have like a dippy kid here. Okay, but
Got
still,
a dippy mom too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's justification for a $1.5 million lawsuit, especially if that was the assignment.
Well, you know how, the way lawsuits work is you always ask for more than you think you'll actually
Sure,
get.
Right.
Sure. And then they'll get maybe half of it.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a punitive damage as much as it is
actual damage.
Yeah, they're not actually, nobody's actually going to get
Of course, if this kid thinks that Jesus is his best friend, then I think that kid's got some damage going on already, because obviously he's got no real life people for best friends.
That's Christianity. That's Christianity. The whole notion of Christianity is, look how important I am. The creator of the universe is my best friend.
Yeah, but it also tells you that your real friends are false friends because they're not spiritual enough.
Right. So, that's,
Anyway, there is a closer to this story. After the disputed assignment, Philip's mother pulled him out of school and he failed all his classes. There's responsible parenting for you. He wants to attend a different school next year. What do I think Jesus would think about what has happened to me? I hope he's proud of me and on my side, he said.
Sure, yeah.
Wow. That's just...
The great thing about religion, the creator of the universe is always gunning for you. He's always got your back.
Just like those products that Arlo showed of the Jesus with the with the baseball glove and Jesus with the the soccer ball.
Right.
Playing basketball with the kids.
Playing basketball with the kids.
Well, the basketball one was really unfair, right? Because here's Jesus as an adult playing basketball with these little kids at only half his height.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, you suck!
Yeah.
Right in your face!
Creator 1, y'all negative.
Yeah, well, we got another lawsuit going on. This one is even more hazy as far as I'm concerned. A lawsuit was filed Thursday against a suburban Dallas school district challenging a policy prohibiting employees from using email to communicate religious messages. Now let's just think about that for a minute.
Let's absorb
You use your email for all kinds of crap, don't you?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you communicate with your coworkers, you send stupid little spam. Well, I mean,
I don't. I'm probably
polite people
a
don't.
non-spammer guy.
But I mean, like my grandma sends me cute little spam, which I delete
constantly.
Yeah, I've gotten religious spam from my parents in the past.
Right. And some people email stuff like that from work because that's where they got it.
Right.
You know how you can really get yourself off those religious spam lists really quickly?
How?
Is to reply to them. Like, send a reply to, reply all, so that all 40 names get it, but then reply to all the little points the religious tract makes with a detailed critique as to why it's stupid. And then suddenly you never hear from those people anymore.
Right, except if it's your grandmother sending it, and she is a generous grandmother, you don't want to do that.
Polite ways.
Anyway, the American Center for Law and Justice, that would be Jay Secula's group, based in Virginia Beach, Virginia, filed the lawsuit in U.S. District Court in Dallas on behalf of LaDonna DeVore, who works in the administrative offices of the Highland Park Independent School District. This spring, she sent a message over the district's email system that included a proclamation by President Bush concerning a National Day of Prayer. So, again, rude and annoying, yes. Should she be prohibited from doing that? Probably not.
Is she doing it on her time or on...
Well, she sent a message over the district's email system.
I would encourage everybody who gets a letter like that from her to fire back all of the Founding Father quotes indicating that America is not a Christian nation.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
We got freedom of speech, too.
Sure, and...
The email was sent to acquaintances within the school system and friends outside the district, according to the suit. The lawsuit contends that DeVore, a Mesquite resident, was told her April 30th email was inappropriate and warned by school officials that further use of the email system to communicate religious messages could result in suspension of her email privileges. The complaint says the district allows employees to use the email system to communicate both work-related and private messages. There. So she's allowed to email private stuff from the public email. It says that specifically.
Okay, well then, okay.
Yeah.
Should be allowed
you
to
know,
send it,
as much as I dislike the ACLJ on general grounds, I find that I often agree on which things they choose to pick fights on. Because there is that hazy area where you have to be very careful, because if religious people don't get certain rights, then neither do atheists.
Yeah. That's very true.
Well, they should get the right to freedom of speech. They're granted that.
Sure.
Freedom of publication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We all want that.
Of course.
One thing that makes me nervous, I of course am not surrounded regularly by children, and so I was having a little discussion with my niece Caitlin the other day, and she told me that this whole prayer in schools thing, I mean, I just assumed that they have prayer in class, which they shouldn't have in the first place, but I assume that if you don't want to pray, you don't have to pray. But she was telling me that if you don't want to pray, you actually have to bring a note written by your parents into class.
Wait a minute, they make her pray in school? Caitlin, they make you pray in school?
Caitlin?
Do you go to Caitlin? Oh, she got.
Yes, she goes to a public.
She's got headphones on.
Caitlin?
Never mind, don't bother. She goes to. You guys know. She goes to a public school.
We need to ask you something.
Yes.
And they have prayer.
You go to a public school? Do they make you pray in school?
Sometimes.
Not every day?
What for? What sometimes, like what kind of occasions would they make you do that in, Caitlin?
Like, sort of like the September 11th thing.
Like September 11th, they made everybody come down and pray?
Well, you know, Governor Perry himself went down to some school
Palestine.
in Palestine, Texas. Yeah.
Okay.
And said, I know it's unconstitutional, but we're all going to pray anyway.
Yeah.
Because we need it.
Okay, now here's the shoes on the other foot now. Okay. You guys aren't thinking lawsuit here?
Sure. We don't think that way. We're just...
Well, it's not... A lot of these suits are not so much about getting the money as it is about making sure that people aren't doing patently illegal stuff.
I don't think that she should have to have a note written by her parents not pray with all the other people.
Oh, a prayer shouldn't be happening at all. At all. Okay? I mean, period. That's the kicker.
Yep.
And so,
I mean, if they want to gather together before class, which I'm sure everybody has said a million times, then that's up to them.
Yeah, like doing
the
shit around the flagpole and everything. That's like, that's before school hours, and that's their thing, and that's kids doing it on their own.
But
But if they have a thing where kids are being obligated to pray for any reason whatsoever, and in order to abstain you have to bring a note, hello, big constitutional violation. I have the ACLU all over this.
Damn straight.
Yeah.
So.
And here's another problem with that.
I'm not Caitlin's parents, so I can't do it.
I haven't heard that much about this, though. I mean,
Well, here's another issue with it, is even if all that's going on is that kids are getting together before school, like you say, Martin, and praying in front of the flagpole, to me, though, I still have a problem with that even. Not because they have the right to pray, because they do, but the problem is they don't need to be doing it on school grounds, period. I don't care if it is outside. I mean, and granted, you can't tell people, well, you can't pray here at all. You can't pray before a test. You can't pray at all. But here's the thing, is if, taking the football game example, with the prayer before, football games, I vividly remember being, in band, and I didn't feel comfortable to speak out and say, look, I think this is really offensive and uncomfortable for me to have to sit here and listen to this prayer before the football game.
All right, but that was like a school sponsor. I mean, that was a prayer taking place before the football game.
Right.
You would have had more of a case there. Like the thing with the flagpole, the kids before the bell rings getting together and doing the prayer around the flagpole deal. There's really, I mean,
but
that's
the difference. I don't see the difference.
No, the difference is that it's not school. It's not school sponsored
by the school.
Yeah, it's not school sponsored. It's the kids doing it on their own. So
there's no federal funding going into that. That's people who feel like praying, getting together before class. They're fully within
their First Amendment freedom of religion.
You can't stop people from going and doing what they want in a group.
Yeah,
we don't want to stop.
I agree. But my concern about it is just that. Let's say there were a group of kids outside the school, and some were atheists, some were Christians, some were Buddhists, some were Hindu, and a group wanted
Jenny,
to pray.
We're getting lots of people in the chat room telling us we have to go sue the school now.
Oh, good. Maybe we should.
Yeah.
Well, I need a new car.
She's going to a different school next year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would still. Definitely look into it.
Facts about it, so I can't go,
That's
ranting
right.
and raving.
But anyway.
Well,
Yeah, but
anyway,
it could be a thing worthy of getting all the facts.
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. I mean, but here's my concern. It's not the fact that people don't have the right to pray, because I think they do. But what my concern is even if the prayer is going on in front of the school, by the flagpole or whatever, and not sanctioned by the school, there is still a pressure that could happen where if you don't join those other students, you could be ostracized simply because they'll know that you're not part of their clique.
Well, hang on. The difference here, of course, is that it's not every single, however, 2,000 students in the average high school
they're
doing
usually
it.
like
Right.
10 or 20 students.
I mean, it's all.
Well, I went to a very small school.
Yeah.
I went to a very small high school.
But
There
the
were
fact
like
is-
99 people in our
I
graduating
went to
class.
elementary school
Okay.
in Alabama, and I don't remember actually having prayers.
Yeah.
Well,
Here's the thing.
Except for, God is great, saying grace before a meal. That was pretty much mandatory.
Really?
I mean, the teenage experience is all about find your clique and fit in. And, there's nothing you can change about that. That's just the way it is. And if
My
there's
clique never prayed.
there's a group of religious kids, and if they, are they doing that? I don't see that there's any evidence that the groups of students who are voluntarily getting together before class hours and praying around the flag are then going around during school hours and, finding kids in the lockers like, I didn't see you in the circle this morning.
Yeah.
No, I think it would be much more subtle than that, though.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there's
I don't
evidence of
know.
that happening. And even if there were evidence of it happening, tough, right? They can pressure all they want. There's no way that they can oblige anyone to join their little clique, right? Again, it gets down to the main factor in determining whether or not any sort of religious activity on a school setting is unconstitutional. I think is tied specifically into whether or not it's being instituted by the school itself, being promoted by the school, funded somehow by the school.
Yeah, because if the school...
Because there's all kinds of, there's Fellowship for Christian Athletes, there's Young Life, there are all of these Christian-oriented high school outreach groups that meet after class.
The point is, if the school allows kids to congregate independently on their grounds for any reason, then they shouldn't be able to discriminate. I mean, to say, no, you can't do that because, chess club can meet, but you guys can't.
Because you're Christians.
Right.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Yeah.
And if those individual students want to go around, haranguing non-Christian students, well, then they might, if they cross paths with the wrong non-Christian student and get their butt kicked, that's the penalty they suffer for that.
I'm not saying that would necessarily happen. I'm just saying that my concern is just that having that in the school at all, to me, just sets up this adversarial type, relationship within the system.
Well, we already have religion in society, which is adversarial by its very nature.
Yeah.
Now, religion is, particularly like big monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, they are by definition intolerant. Because each one of them preaches that anybody who isn't a member of this club is a bad guy. He's a sinner, or well, maybe not so much Judaism, but the whole idea is that if you don't belong, you're a sinner and you need to be converted. I'd say Christianity and Islam are far more the culprits than Judaism. I think Judaism is very much laissez-faire, whatever. But definitely Christianity. It's like that, and it's endemic in our culture. I mean, and it's the nature of that teaching that, non-Christians are sinners, and you either have to convert them to save them, or they're bad and they're going to hell, and who cares anyway? That's the attitude. So that's intolerant by definition.
So
there's
what
no
business does that have in the school?
Well, it's like there's no way you cannot have it in the schools if you have students in the schools who are Christian, okay, whose parents raised them that way, okay? And with Christianity being the majority religion in America, you're going to have, there's no way you can have a public school and not have Christian students.
Sure.
So there's no way you can have a situation where you can justifiably say, before school or after school or when it's not school hours, Christian students can't do stuff. Can't pray of their own accord. They have that First Amendment protection. I understand that I find it just as distasteful as you find it. But my reaction would be to avoid
it,
or I would march into class right through their damn circle. That's what I would do. I mean, that's me exercising my First Amendment for you.
Yeah,
I mean, I barely ever noticed it, but the high school that I
And it's
went to
lawsuit time!
I mean, it was in a small town, and there were probably a lot of Christians. I'm sure there were a lot of Mormons in that town, but it was also the only high school in the entire town, so it was actually a very, very big high school. So I never even noticed it. I mean, the little Christian group gathered around the flagpole. I was on the other side of the entire school with my little debaters who, debaters never pray.
No, they just argue.
We think too much.
Yeah, but they never sought you out and gave you a hard time for not being part of the
they
circle,
never
right?
noticed me. I never noticed them. I was surprised, when I went back to Los Alamos that some people even knew me by name because, I didn't recognize them because I didn't hang with their crowd.
Yeah.
That's all part of the teenage experience. You find your little clique and you fit in.
Yeah.
And there you are.
Weather it out for a few years.
That's right.
You can be an adult.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's all just...
I mean, that's just like saying that you don't want girls to primp in the bathroom on a public school campus because that's ostracizing ugly girls. Because if you're not in there primping with them...
I'm so glad I didn't say that. I've been accused of being a sexist pig so much that...
I'm not being sexist.
No, I know.
I'm saying that there's not much credibility to saying that, because if you don't want to primp in the bathroom, then that's your prerogative.
You shouldn't have to.
And I don't think you should feel ostracized by the fact that some girls go into the bathroom and primp before every single class. I think those girls are dimwits, personally.
Yeah.
Oh boy, we got a lightning storm forming out.
Very cool.
If we
And
lose
it's
our
raining.
connection,
Divine wrath is coming.
I've
had it up to here with you
By the end
guys.
of the show, you'll know why.
Uh-oh, there comes
Yeah, I know.
Here comes the thunder now.
You got
Again?
struck by lightning.
I got struck by lightning.
What? Damn, girl. What? How?
Well, I was sitting in this room at this table, and there was this, to me it looked like a flash flood, because I'm from Phoenix, and it just never rains there. But there was, you couldn't even see out the window, because it was, pouring against the window. All of a sudden, this bolt of lightning just flashed so close, and this static electricity shock, I was touching this table here, and it shocked me. And we saw it, bolting around in the room.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's...
Caitlin got hit too. I mean, the two of us, my mom,
Yeah, a friend of mine actually used to live in apartments just down the road from here, and we're talking on the phone, on a cordless phone, one day while there was a thunderstorm going outside. A lightning bolt struck a tree about 100 yards away outside the apartment. Phone just flew out of her hand. So,
I said,
but we
let's go out
understand
and
that there's
buy a
natural
lotto ticket,
explanations.
because I hear you're not as
course
likely
we
to
do.
win the lotto as you are
Did you already
to
get
get
it?
struck by lightning. So I've been struck, so...
So you get
it
those damn
hurt?
scratch
There you
tickets
go.
right now.
Did it hurt?
Yes,
The
it
only
did.
problem is,
Good.
if you calculate the odds for getting struck by lightning and winning the lotto,
Yeah.
that's really low.
Anyway, so I had do we have time?
Yeah.
Are we running out?
Mary, do you have
25
some really
minutes.
important news stories? What I'd like to do is,
No,
Keryn...
I don't have anything that...
Okay,
that
Keryn, you
impressive.
do your bit. I want to talk about the Newsweek article.
Well, now someone in the chat room is, of course, mentioning the passage from the book of Matthew where Jesus, Charles, talking about the religious showboaters, and of course, that's the ironic point is that many people bring up is that a lot of these arch right-wing, religious right, Christian right types are sort of going against the teachings of Jesus when they are out there publicly showboating their piety. And that is kind of distasteful, and they always like to ask, what would Jesus do? And you can always point to Matthew 6:5-6,
which
to say, well, Jesus says, go into your closet
and
to
when thou
pray.
prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the street, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret.
Yeah. And Tim and I were having this discussion yesterday, and he actually mentioned, I think it was that very passage, we were talking about these Christian businesses that have the fish on their signs and stuff.
I think that's great.
I don't.
No, I do, because I know where not to do business now.
It's like, stay away from this place.
Exactly, yeah. I think that's very helpful. Dell Automotive, you're not getting my business.
It's like a big leprosy sign over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, do you have a problem with
Like the
that?
lamb's blood.
Yeah.
So,
That's funny.
yeah.
So, Keryn, what do you have to tell
Yes,
us? Miss
actually-
just got a
Almost-
master's degree in social work.
Well, this is a little bit unrelated to that, but I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and a lot of people that find themselves to be they feel to be very religious and very spiritual. If they find out you're an atheist, they're like, well, I mean, I know you, so I know that you're not a bad or immoral person, so maybe there's some part of you that's still spiritual or religious.
Mhm.
I think that even though you're an atheist, you're still religious. And so I got into this
Righty.
conversation as I often do, I pulled out my handy-dandy little Webster's Pocket Dictionary out of my purse, and I looked up the definition of religion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really stretch it, you could make a case to say that we atheists, we are all very, very religious.
By the way, this is on our fact page.
Yeah.
Is
Frequently
it?
asked questions, atheistcommunity.org. Because people always accuse us of being religious.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to say the same thing because I haven't read
Okay,
that page.
go ahead.
But if you look up the definition of religion, I see two definitions.
Okay, we
The
have
first
4 on
one-
the fact, but
Oh,
we'll do
the
yours.
first one is service and worship of God.
Mhm.
Well, mine's a pocket dictionary, so
I think they couldn't fit all shrink it down to fit your
the
pocket.
second one says a set or system of religious beliefs. So then you go down to the word religious. And the word religious says, number 1, relating to or devoted to an ultimate reality or deity. So if you take, so reality or
Reality.
deity. So if you're saying that you're devoted to a certain reality, I mean, then you're obviously not believing in God.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm making the... Okay.
Well, because if you're a religious person, then you're devoted to an ultimate reality.
Well, who isn't devoted to an ultimate? I mean, in terms of...
Exactly.
If you're acknowledging the fact that you're alive on this earth at all, and you're trying to make it day to day and have some sort of purpose in your
Well,
being
I guess
here.
some postmodern nihilists or something.
Yeah. Well, right, but I mean, how-
the world is all just an illusion.
But even nihilism is a belief system.
Well, I don't know. I think if you
Well-
break down reality or
Well-
deity, you could say you're religious if you believe in God, or you're religious if you don't believe in God.
Well,
Because
see,
I
this
believe.
is the same sort of argument that we got from a Christian caller who harangued our show for a few weeks before he left.
Was that
James Watkins.
That was he a lawyer or
No, he was. I think he was a legal student.
Okay.
But he's a guy
even
who,
worse.
But he
knows a little bit about law.
He made the point that all beliefs are religious beliefs, and I kind of pointed out that if I believe that Nutter Butters are yummier than Oreos, that's not a religious belief. But also, it's you could stretch it. There is a definition of religion under the dictionary we used. That says essentially any group or sect that has this sort of shared interest in something that gets together and does stuff. And I thought, well, okay, that could maybe qualify atheism as a religion, but it would also qualify a bowling league as a religion. When you get right down to it.
Some people are very religious about
So
bowling.
it depends on how broad you want to define religion. I'm sure that you could broaden your definition of religion so as to include atheism.
Yeah,
but I like to think that
while
words
I would agree
mean
that some
things.
people get religious about silly things like bowling, I would certainly think that if it came right down to the wire, Christians would be offended to be put in the same category with a group of fanatical bowlers.
Yeah, I think that what differentiates
Unless
a
they're
religious
Christian
belief
fanatical
system-
bowlers.
Well, and I'm sure there's dozens of Christian bowling leagues. I think what differentiates a religious belief system from, say, something like
Good sport for
a
Christians.
philosophical
Doesn't
belief
require a
system
lot of
or an
thought.
ethical belief system or a political belief system is that religious belief systems are specifically tied to some sort of belief in either a spiritual leader or I think the definition on our website has to do with either belief in a deity or reverence for a spiritual leader.
Right, because
Yeah.
ultimately I think the primary definition of religion comes down to worship of something supernatural.
Yeah, and it implies a practice. Religion implies the practice of worship as opposed to something like theism, where you can believe in a god, but you don't necessarily. You can be a theist, but not religious.
Right.
Never practice
People
a-
tell me that I worship myself because I don't worship God, and I don't. I like myself.
Oh, I totally
but,
worship
you know,
myself.
All that printing going on in high school,
Caitlin's
holding the little
palm leaf.
palm leaf over her head now, like fanning you with the palm leaf.
Chanel guy says, "Blood of Christ Bowling League, striking sin out."
That's why I thought it was so interesting when I pulled out my little pocket dictionary and it even went so far as to talk about being devoted to reality, which I think would exclude all religion, but that's just because I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
Relating or devoted to an ultimate reality or deity. Well, of course, now those
That
of us of
includes anything.
a philosophical bent would immediately say, "Whoa, define ultimate reality."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that mean your ultimate reality that you don't believe in God?
Yeah.
In other words,
Sure.
that you don't believe in God is
I
your
think in
ultimate
ultimate reality, we can say there is no
Well, but
God.
see, but that's not. I wouldn't say that that's my ultimate reality, because if I were confronted tomorrow with compelling evidence for the existence of God, I would change my mind. So I don't believe in this whole sort of ultimate. It seems to me that the term ultimate reality means that you've got this inviolable dogma about how you view life. And I like to think I don't have dogmas. I go by what the evidence is, and if I have what I believe or choose to believe has to do with what the evidence that I'm presented with supports or doesn't support.
Now, what would you
Yes,
find
indeed.
compelling evidence that there was a God?
Okay. On September 11th, if an enormous glowing hand had materialized in midair in the path of the airplanes and a big booming voice had come down from the heavens saying, "Oh no, you don't," then that would have convinced me that there was at least something powerful preventing that from happening.
But
I
as
think
a
if
fervent
this-
atheist, would you really believe that? Or would
What do
you
I-
think that some reverent religious group had put together some phenomenal special effects to try and make all
I
the
would
atheists
have to
work?
consider that as a possibility.
You'd
I
have
would
to
have to say,
investigate it.
yeah,
but,
you'd have to. I mean, I wouldn't draw any conclusions from that, but I would definitely have to say, okay, something happened. Now let's figure out what it is.
right.
And depending on if the evidence showed that this was all an amazing special effect, then I would be like,
I
damn.
think a Christian had once presented a scenario to me that I would find pretty persuasive, which is, suppose you're looking at the stars and all of a sudden they completely rearrange themselves in the sky and spell out the full text of John 3:16.
I would assume that you were on something.
No, and you have multiple witnesses who all saw the same thing.
Well, then there you go. That would be an event that would happen that you would have to acknowledge. And,
Yeah,
and you'd
so
have to
I
look for-
think it is falsifiable that there is no God.
But we
Yeah.
also have a mob of people in India saying that, these 5 women were witches and then they killed them. I mean, that's not verifiable.
And we've got a lot of people who constantly say that they have proof
Yeah.
of UFOs, and we have the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, but their
and-
stories never match. That's
Yeah.
the main thing.
Well,
Scientific knowledge is repeatable.
So
Yeah.
even
I
if
mean-
you had witnesses, you'd probably also have to have documentable proof
Sure you
that
would, because-
someone had to be videotaping the sky at that moment.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if you've got all those things.
Okay.
Sure. But hypothetical. But these are the
I
hypothetical
mean, look,
scenarios.
God is all powerful. He knows what it would. He knows that it's not impossible to convince me, and he must know. I mean, assuming that he exists, he must know exactly what it would take in my mind to give me reasonable evidence. So I don't think it should be too hard for him.
Yeah.
But when you get right down to it, this is one of these sort of what-if, hypothetical scenarios that's kind of ultimately pointless to talk about. Because, again, we had a caller on the TV show who went on in this vein forever. It's like, what if some cross, miraculously appeared on the wall in front of you and then it disappeared? And he kept, he's the guy that eventually hung up on because he just wouldn't shut up and he was filibustering.
Yeah.
But, the ultimate answer to that is, look, we can talk all day about what if this happened and what if that happened. The point is, things like that haven't happened. They don't happen as far as the evidence that I've been confronted with can tell me. And so until something like that does, until I'm confronted with that kind of evidence, I'm going to choose to disbelieve. That's all there is to it. And sure, you can speculate until the cows come home, but that doesn't get you anywhere. We're talking about what's real here, what's verifiable.
Yeah.
Speaking of talking about stuff that you can't prove,
Yeah.
I'd like to turn to the article in Newsweek this week.
Good. About heaven.
About heaven, why we need heaven. There's been some quite entertaining debate going on, or not debate because we all agree, but discussion on the email list about an article that was in this week's Newsweek, August 12th, called Why We Need Heaven.
Okay.
Now, it's a fairly long article, so you can go and check it out for yourself. But I want to pay particular attention to some hilarious stuff that Billy Graham's daughter, Anne Graham Lotz, has said in the article. For believers, heaven can be an inspiration, incentive, comfort, or ballast. It can be metaphoric or concrete. built to last, as Billy Graham's daughter Anne Graham Lotz puts it in her popular little book, Heaven, My Father's House. According to a Newsweek poll, 76% of Americans in heaven, and of those 76% of Americans believe in heaven, and of those, 71% think it's an actual place. But after that, agreement breaks down. 19% thinks heaven looks like a garden, 13% say it looks like a city, and 17% don't know.
Well, a lot of people say heaven is whatever you want it to be.
17% don't know.
Which I think completely is why the whole idea can be dismissed. It's just the ultimate in wishful thinking.
But it's so hilarious that they argue over what it looks like. No, it looks like a garden. No, it looks like a city. They don't know.
Where's the quote in there from?
They're making it up. I'm going to get to
Okay, good, because that's the best part.
They're making it all up.
Of course.
And they argue, and not only do they argue, but Anne Graham Lotz gets really specific. Here you go. The book appeals because it's like the theological version of comfort food. This is Anne's book that we're talking about now. Lotz compares heaven to a dream home, one that is safe, that's all paid for, that shelters your loved ones. In Lotz's heaven, God is the head of the household, the kind father who leaves the porch light on for the arrival of his beloved children. And Lotz even gives the dimensions of heaven.
Okay.
It's a cube. 1,500 miles on a side, as large as the area from Canada to Mexico, and from the Atlantic Ocean to the Rockies. It could easily accommodate 20 billion residents, each having his or her own private 75-acre cube, or room or mansion. This would still leave plenty of room for streets, parks, and public buildings. And as someone commented also on the email list, well, that sounds an awful lot like the Borg cube.
You will be assimilated.
Yeah.
That's how the religious right sees it.
Anyway, so we got this reply email from Shelley Hatton, who's a member, and if she is listening, I hope she doesn't mind that I'm stealing her material, because it was great.
I'm going to steal it on the TV show tomorrow.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
She writes, I design subdivisions for a living.
Yep, we're still there.
Here's a quick breakdown on how we developed this area. Streets take up about 1/3 of the development. Won't people have wings or be able to teleport to anywhere they want to go? But I digress. 1,500 square miles times 2/3 equals 1,000 square miles left for development. Let's assume parks and public buildings. For what? We'll have politicians in heaven to organize us there. We won't need grocery stores or laundromats. We'll make up about half the remaining space. 1,000 square miles times 1/2 equals 500 square miles left for residential development. Each home will be on a 75-acre lot. There are 320,000 acres in 500 square miles, so we can have a total of 320,000 acres divided by 75 acres per lot equals 4,266 lots. Each lot can contain an average of 3.2 people. That's the average number of people per home we have here in the U.S. So heaven can really only accommodate 13,651 people.
That's not even the 144,000 from Revelation.
Unless, of course, the cube indicates that we will have multiple stories, and I assume it does.
Okay.
So in order for us to accommodate 20 billion residents, we'd have to have 20 billion divided by 13,651 people per level equals 1,465,094 levels. Just wanted to run the numbers.
That's terrific. I was so glad she did that.
And each level, someone else worked out, each level could be a maximum of 5 feet 4 inches in height.
Yeah.
So that's like
That is so...
not going to be very comfortable even for me.
There.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
we're not going to have
plus-
bodies, so it doesn't matter, right?
Well, I hope not.
Then why do we even
because
need a
that'd be an
cube to
awful
live
lot
in?
of waste
Yeah.
on each level.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
wait a minute, I think I caught an error in the math, which would not make this nearly as funny as it is now.
Oh.
She says 1,500 square miles.
2/3 of 1,500.
The original says it's a cube, 1,500 miles on a side.
That's 1,500 square miles.
That's
Yeah.
1,500 times 1,500 square miles.
It's 1,500 times. No, well, 1,500. Well, 1,500 miles on a side is 1,500.
No, it's
No,
not.
you're right.
Oh well, let's move on.
Well, it's funny anyway.
Yes,
It
it
is.
still is funny,
It's hilarious.
especially the waist part.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the chat room saying?
Let's see. Oh, they're just
They
talking
don't know.
about it
I
isn't
have a
1,500.
Christianity is board club.
There's Charles Tavaney.
Send it to me.
It isn't 1,500 square miles. It's 1,500 miles squared.
Yeah, he's right. That's what I said.
Okay,
Okay.
Would
so
work out to
let's do more. Okay.
1,500 times 1,500.
times 1,500. Math live on the air from the
From
2.225 million.
Yeah, 2.25 million square miles, which
Well, I
is
guess
a
we'll
lot more reasonable.
Okay. Well, we'll redo the math later then, I guess, if we have time.
Oh well.
If we feel like it.
That's
Okay.
great, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
You did it.
What are you going to say about Franklin Graham?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know how you were...
Franklin Graham.
Before we got cut off, Martin, you had mentioned something about...
I was just talking about his organization, the Samaritan something. It's either a Samaritan group or something like that, where Franklin Graham, son of Billy Graham,
Yeah.
their group goes to, it's a relief group, and they go to these underdeveloped nations that have been hit with typhoons and natural disasters, and they build them shelters, and they feed them, and they do medical care, which is all well and good. But then, of course, when these people are in the most down-and-out position in life they could possibly be in, they get hit with some hardcore proselytizing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of exploitive, I think. But
Well, let's hope he doesn't go to any Muslim nations, based on what
Uh-oh.
he's saying. He's telling Americans right now that Islam is a religion of intolerance and violence. I know. Oh, the irony.
I have to go to a Radio Shack every week and buy a new irony meter because it explodes every week.
I
When I
know.
listen to these guys talk.
Yeah, well, listen to this. Okay, all right. What he's commenting on is where are the Muslim clerics? He asked Thursday in an interview while on a business trip to Minneapolis, why haven't Muslim clerics from around the world gathered at Ground Zero, held hands together, and prayed to Allah for forgiveness, and told the American people this is not Islam because they believe it was right. This is a just cause. They're jihad. The idiocy just never ceases to amaze me from this guy.
Yeah.
Mainstream political leaders.
Maybe
Yeah.
some of these I'm not going to bat for him because I know a lot of these are bad guys, but I mean there are a lot of really good Islamic clerics out there who, of course, and they've come out on television a bajillion times saying we condemn this is bad. But maybe Islamic clerics aren't like Christian televangelists in that they're not big on exploiting tragedies for the gain of their own religion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah, right.
Like maybe maybe they're not that big. Maybe the people he wants. I mean, certainly Christians on the Christian right are perfectly happy anytime a building blows up or a school shooting takes place. They're out there in force, going, this is horrible and this is why we need God back in schools and we need Christianity everywhere.
And
So
Rick
stuff-
Perry going down to Palestine and
Yeah.
praying, even
You
though he
know.
knows it's constitutionally wrong.
Maybe, I don't know. I think a lot of people, perhaps myself included, would think that it was in tremendously poor taste if suddenly a gaggle of Islamic clerics suddenly converged on Ground Zero and tried to pray to Mecca and do this big public display of Islam.
Yeah.
And
It'd be
try to say,
tacky.
yeah, it would be. It would be like, it would be specifically for the purpose of saying, please don't think that we're bad guys.
Yeah.
Which in a sense is, they have a justification. I mean, there's nothing wrong with not wanting people to think that all Muslims aren't like the lunatics who commit terror.
Yeah.
But still, it'd just be tremendously inappropriate, I think.
Yeah.
Just in very, very poor taste.
I agree.
Yeah.
And Graham, this is again Franklin Graham, son of Billy Graham, said Thursday that he makes no distinction between the faith of Islam and the policies and practices of countries run by Islamic law. I mean,
Okay.
That's
So then
so
I should
unfair.
then I should make no distinction between the religion of Christianity and the actions of something like the Ku Klux Klan.
Exactly.
Or the or Christian identity. All these neo-Nazi hate groups. Maybe we should make no distinction
or
there.
the guy who wrote the Turner Diaries.
Yeah, who was
Who's recently died.
I'm not making that's not that's a reductio ad absurdum. Okay?
Yeah,
I mean, of course it would be stupid to equate all of Christianity with the actions
It
of
would be.
extremist lunatics. But
Right.
the point is that this is what
But that's
Billy
what he's
Graham
saying.
has no problem equating all. Yeah, but there's no surprise here. Are we off?
It looks like.
Oh, it's
okay,
time. Is it time?
If you're listening to this through the direct link, then you're still hearing us. But if you are listening through the through the Shoutcast link, then we're now off the air.
Okay, we should tell them
So
that
maybe
on the-
we should wrap up.
Okay.
Wrap up.
Sorry.
Bye, folks.
Well, it was fun being here for half the show.
Yeah, good having you. Thanks.
Yes, okay.
And thanks for listening.
Jeff
We'll
Eve
talk
and
to you
Vic
next
Farrell
time.
will be back next time.
Jeff and Vic will hopefully be back, and
Thanks to
there'll be
Martin
another
Wagner.
lively episode.
And Keryn Glasser for
Uh-huh.
coming.
Thank you.
And we'll leave you with the music again, which is the Soggy Bottom Boys, Man of Constant Sorrow.
Yay.